people in general consider Tesla to be better than the Chinese people think that Tesla is a better brand than the Chinese brands. And you'll hear all these things about the technology, and it's true that they are doing some really good innovation, and there's some really interesting EVs that they're making.
Yep. What's up, everyone? So I am actually sitting right now in Kuala Lumpur, and look at who I ran into.
It was an accident. It was
an accident. Just saw him in the hotel lobby, and but it's insane that I'm literally, Malaysia has been a great place to visit, but there's not specifically a reason why I probably would have come to visit. I visited other countries in Southeast Asia, but the Tesla brand is bringing me here, and you just moved to Thailand. Been a huge fan of your channel. Thank you for all you do and how you've supported Elon all these years. But we're here at the Tesla Takeover Asia, and I just, you've been here over 18 months, something like that.
In Asia for 18 months.
Yes, Asia for 18 months. And, you've seen all the stuff that's happening in Thailand, Malaysia, and you've traveled to a bunch of other countries. But I just wanted to just jump in. First off, just introduce yourself for the people that may not know who you are.
Sure.
And then just what brought you out to Thailand. And then let's just get into jumping into the Asia market and how BYD's doing and how your perspective has been.
Okay, so I'm Warren Redlick. I'm best known as a YouTuber and an ex-content creator. And I've probably been following Elon. I was a PayPal customer a long time ago. I was an early PayPal, not user, but I'm a retired lawyer. So in my law practice, I received PayPal payments. And I've always been interested in tech people, whether it was Steve Jobs and Bill Gates long ago. So I always followed tech people and read tech magazines. And so I was aware of Elon. And I was aware of Tesla, and I was aware of SpaceX, and I started following it closer. And 2015, December 21, 2015 to be specific, SpaceX lands the first orbital rocket booster.
It's crazy.
And that elevated my interest.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, I started buying Tesla stock. And
so since 2015?
It was February 2016 when I first started buying the stock.
Okay.
I started getting serious about it, and I started buying and buying and buying. And I'm following Everyday Astronaut, and I'm following Gali, and Now You Know, and watching a lot of, and Scott Manley.
Yep.
So I'm watching a lot of SpaceX and Tesla content. And then I think it was 2019, Elon mentioned something about an 18-meter diameter Starship. And Scott Manley didn't talk about it. And Tim Dodd didn't talk about it. And I was like, well, wait a minute. What would that be? And I started doing napkin math. What would happen if you had an 18-meter diameter Starship, and what could you do with that? And I made a video. I had a YouTube channel for years and never did much with it. And I made a video on my YouTube channel. I got 60,000 views. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I just started making a video.
So it started with the Starship?
Yes.
That's... Because I know you, I didn't actually know this about you, but I know you for all the Tesla content. Right. So that's awesome.
No, I just felt like, okay, there's something there that people aren't talking about. I think I'll just make a video about it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. What developed was, the way I see my content creation, and maybe it's changed, was people are talking about Tesla in this way. People are talking about SpaceX, Neuralink in this way. Is there a perspective I have to bring that's different in some way? And sometimes the answer is no. I think Stephen Mark Ryan's great. I think Farzad's great. I thought Rob was great. Dave Lee's great, right? There's a lot of great content creators already. So it's if everybody already said the same thing, I don't need to say it too.
Yeah.
I don't need to do spreadsheet analysis of breaking down the quarterly numbers. James Stevenson's already doing that. There's a few other people already doing that. It's do I have some sort of insight that might add value in some way? And I think the biggest thing where I stand out now is if something comes up that's a legal issue. Elon sues somebody, Elon gets sued, Tesla gets sued, there's some decision on the Delaware courts or whatever. I know how, because I'm a retired lawyer, I know how to read those decisions. And I can add value in that way. So that's my background in content creation. And I've actually, now that I've come to Asia, and I'm chasing certain, like my ex profile says chasing dreams, right? I'm chasing certain dreams. I want to have children again. I have 2 adult children. They're great.
Yeah.
And my marriage died. That's a long conversation, but I wanted to find a wife.
Yep.
And I spent 2 years dating in America. It was terrible. And no offense, I wasn't what the women wanted.
Yeah.
I'm not, there are people who will say terrible things about women. They're entitled to look for what they want.
Yeah.
I wasn't it.
Yeah.
And I do get annoyed at women who complain about passport bros because I'm basically a passport bro, right? Like I left.
Yeah.
I went to Japan first because I speak Japanese and I had lived in Japan before.
Yeah.
And 3 months there was better. And then my 90 days was up.
Yep.
And I started traveling, landed in Bangkok, liked it, and I met my new wife.
Yeah. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. And we got married several months later, and we're chasing that dream of having children.
Yeah.
And I have other dreams. I want to build a single passenger electric vehicle.
Yeah,
There's no chance I'm ever going to succeed at this, but I'm too dumb to know that. So I'm going to do it anyway, maybe. And I'm exploring and seeing the world, and it's great. And I'm seeing, I actually think relevant to the topic of making content about Tesla and technology, I think being here in Thailand in particular, but also Malaysia similar, gives me a perspective on how electric vehicles are going to play out and how other technology might play out in other countries.
Yeah.
That, if you're in America, just a really simple example. Most Americans don't know that the second largest pickup truck market in the world is Thailand.
Yeah, you told me that. I was shocked.
And Darren Young told me that. And I was shocked when he told me. But I got there and it's like, when you're in Thailand, it's like, boy, there's a lot of pickup trucks here. It depends where you are. But some places it's just like, there's more pickup trucks here than Texas. What's going on? It's crazy. Yeah. So they're all Ranger size. They're not F-150 size, just to be clear. But
yeah, no, that stat alone was crazy. So you've been here 18 months. You've been a long-time Tesla investor. You're familiar with the EV market in the U.S. and obviously, it's facing a lot of headwinds now. I mean, you've seen all of the legacy companies pulling back, essentially, and no surprise. But what has it been like being in Asia? I drove a Denza from Singapore to KL, which is the higher version of BYD. So, and then I went to the BYD showroom in Singapore. So that was a good experience just to see what the competition is. But what has been your experience now being out here been like?
Sure. So number one, I see a lot of Chinese electric vehicles on the roads and a lot of Teslas on the roads in Bangkok. In Japan, you don't see many Chinese EVs. You see some Teslas, but not many. Toyota just dominates. The Japanese car makers just dominate, and they don't make a lot of EVs. I saw like one Leaf.
Yeah.
Right. Taiwan has a lot of Teslas. Hong Kong has a lot of Teslas. Taiwan, I don't think, has Chinese EVs because they hate mainland China. Hong Kong, you would think you would see more Chinese EVs, but
Ton of Teslas
in Hong Kong, and surprisingly not many Chinese EVs. And I think the answer is because Hong Kong Chinese are wealthy, and they can afford a Tesla. They're not buying a cheap. And this is one of those things that I think people in America don't know. You'll hear all these people talking about how great the Chinese EVs are, and I have a lot of positive things to say about them. But they don't have the same brand. Tesla has a spectacular brand in Asia.
Yeah.
People in general consider Tesla to be better than the Chinese people think that Tesla is a better brand than the Chinese brands. And you'll hear all these things about the technology, and it's true that they are doing some really good innovation, and there's some really interesting EVs that they're making.
Yep.
But all the stuff you hear about, they have this EV that charges really fast, or have these EVs that are like 7 passengers, SUVs or whatever. It's true, but they're all sold in low volume. That they don't actually have the supply chain for the fast charging batteries yet. It's coming. They will get there.
Yep.
But when they get there and they have sufficient supply chain for the faster charging batteries, Tesla will adopt the fast charging batteries. They can't put a low volume battery in a Model Y.
Yeah.
You can't put a low volume battery in a high volume car. So, but I really do. I think I see lots of great EVs, and there are certain EVs that I see a lot of in Thailand. We say Thailand, not Thailand. And almost all the Chinese EVs that I see are what I would call city cars.
Okay.
They're good for driving around the city. If you want to go on a road trip, not a good idea.
Yeah.
They'll have okay range.
Yeah.
Even the ones who have range comparable to a Tesla,
Yep.
the charging networks that aren't Tesla also. And I shouldn't say, I don't know about BYD's charging network.
Yeah.
I didn't use that.
Yep.
But generally speaking, the other charging networks are terrible.
Yeah.
And the supercharger network is great. So if you have a Tesla and you have, 300 miles of range, which is, 450, 500 kilometers of range here, speeds are lower, so the car will go farther.
Yeah.
You'll get more range out of a Tesla or other EV in Thailand than you'll get in America because you rarely go over 70 miles an hour in Thailand.
Yeah.
But I just think that, number one, I think people should appreciate that the Chinese are really doing well. Elon isn't just blowing smoke when he says they're really good at manufacturing EVs. They really are good. They're not at Tesla's quality level yet.
So what are they doing good at?
Making inexpensive EVs in high volume. So the
Okay.
BYD Dolphin, which you may have seen,
Yeah, I've seen
the
that.
BYD Dolphin is selling right now in Thailand for $17,000.
Wow.
559,000 baht, about 17,000 US dollars.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And it's a city car. It's not particularly good range. They don't charge fast. The high volume BYDs charge at like 88 kilowatts. The BYD Atto 3 is now, I think, the number one EV in Thailand. And it's a nice EV. And Darren did a video with one a while back. Darren Young, Singapore YouTuber.
And he also he's doing the Tesla Takeover Asia. He's the brains behind this, along with Rachel and the Tesla owners of Singapore and Malaysia.
Yeah. So the Atto 3 is a very nice small SUV. And a really simple way of describing this size is the Model Y has about 2,100 liters of cargo space. The Atto 3 has 1,300.
Okay.
So it's significantly smaller than a Model Y. But it's comfortable for 4 people and maybe 5.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of room and it doesn't have as much range, but the charge rate's only 88 kilowatts.
Yeah.
So like, if you're on a road trip, it depends how, and Thailand is a pretty big country. So if you were driving from Bangkok to Phuket, it's about a 14-hour drive, 14-hour drive. In a Tesla, you might get away with charging once, maybe twice. But in a BYD, you're going to charge, and the Tesla charge 30 minutes and go. Charge 30 minutes and maybe 20 minutes sometimes. But if you're in that BYD, it's hit or miss whether you get a good charger. And then like some of the charging networks, you get a half-hour slot.
Yeah.
You get a half-hour slot and it's only 60 kilowatts. It's like, so I think
30, that's crazy. Yeah.
So I think that there are probably a few Chinese EVs that are made in small volume that are okay road trip cars.
Okay.
But with that said, like, well, they're selling a very high volume of Atto 3s and Dolphins in Thailand, and the BYD Seal is very close to the Model 3 in look, right? And function, largely. 3's better, but still a good car. I think that one charges at 150 kilowatts, so it's not quite as much of a shortfall. So there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of interest, and I think they're going to figure it out, and they're going to get better. And the big point that I would make is, if you are looking at Tesla as an investor, and your obsession is they need to make more cars, they need to get out the $25,000, the Gary Black, they need to get out the $25,000 car, you're not going to make a lot of profit in the long term selling cars because the Chinese EV makers are good, they're getting better, and they're very, very price competitive. And it's like, I'm not saying Tesla can't make profits, I'm not saying Tesla can't grow, but you're not going to get that successful. You're not going to justify a $400 share price selling 5 million EVs at 20% margins. That's my opinion.
I know.
I think there's a path for Tesla to sell 5, maybe 10 million EVs. But the Chinese are going to eat away at your margins. They'll get better. They are getting better. They will get better. And that's what I see. And if you're in America, you just don't see Chinese EVs. And that's just one other thing. I'm sorry. I know, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm an Elon supporter, whatever. I think it's wrong that the United States and Canada prevent consumers from having access to these BYDs. The Chinese EVs are very good. They're like, if you are a working class American and you don't like going to gas stations and you'd like to be able to charge at home and you don't usually drive more than 100 miles in a day, you should be able to buy a BYD
Which is
Dolphin.
a lot of Americans.
If you don't drive more than 100, if you rarely drive more than 100 miles in a day, and you're going to save so much money. The Atto 3 is like it's less than $25,000, and it's a good car.
Yeah.
And if you charge that at home, and like you're going to save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Compared to having a Honda Civic or a Ford Escape or whatever. I don't know if they still make the Ford Escape, but whatever the most popular cars are, RAV4, something like that. You're going to save a lot of money with that car, and it's very practical and it's very good. And I feel like American consumers are being deprived of the opportunity to save money and accelerate the transition to sustainable energy.
So you just told me about what they're doing well at cheap, high volume cars. You also talked a little bit about, potentially kind of how the U.S. is preventing them from coming in. What are some of the things that they're not doing well at that kind of Tesla has the edge on?
Well, so Tesla has better with high volume cars like the Model Y and Model 3. Tesla has a faster charge rate. They're charging at 250 kilowatts, and that's going to go up. I think Teslas are safer. Teslas have better range and better efficiency. So miles per kilowatt hour or kilometers per kilowatt hour, Teslas are better. Software is better. Obviously self-driving is not in Thailand yet. There's some limited self-driving in Thailand, and I didn't get a chance to use that. The software quality is better. I think the interior volume, the efficiency in how they make the car and improve the passenger experience by having more space around you and having more practical. Like I said, the BYD Atto 3, 1,300 liters of cargo space. The Model Y, 2,100 liters of cargo space. Yeah. There's a lot more room in a Model Y than there is in a BYD Atto 3. So I think that there's, and then just quality of manufacturing. Like I haven't experienced a Chinese EV enough. I know the perception from customers, from Thai people, from people in Hong Kong, from people in mainland China. What I'm hearing from people, Malaysia, whatever, is they just don't have the same level of quality. Because people will say, Tesla fit and finish, or they'll crack on Tesla quality. The reality is Tesla quality is very, very good.
Yeah.
And
especially out of Shanghai, too.
Yes. So the point is they're good, and they will get better. They have a long ways to go, but they will get better. They are innovating, and I will say, they are making some really cool cars.
Yeah.
The Maxus 7, MG Maxus 7 is a nice 7-passenger vehicle. We went to car shows. You mentioned that you've seen vehicles here and there. I've been to the Bangkok Auto Show, or I've been to 3 or 4 Bangkok car shows, including one that Tesla participated in. And by the way, they told me, somebody at the Tesla group at the car show said, we can't sell any Model Ys because everyone's waiting for the next. They all knew the new model. The rumor was out that the new Model Y was coming, and they couldn't
move them.
They couldn't move the Model Ys because everyone was waiting for the new one. I think she used the word juniper, actually. No, Tesla employees never use the word juniper with me or Highland with me, but she actually mentioned juniper. So, but you go to these car shows, and there's a lot of really cool, innovative designs that they've come up with. But then, you've got these, and I haven't been inside mainland China, so I don't know what it's like in mainland China. I didn't see much of them in Hong Kong. I don't know how much they're selling these other vehicles in China, because it is a big market.
Yeah.
I just see what I see in Thailand, which is the Xpeng G6, a couple of Deepals, DEEPAL, the Aura Good Cat, and a lot of BYD Atto 3, Dolphin, and Seal, and a lot of Teslas.
Yep.
And then, of course, a lot of pickup trucks that are not electric vehicles.
Yeah.
People don't know this. Thailand's number 1 and number 2 selling vehicles, the Isuzu D-Max pickup truck and the Toyota Hilux pickup, and Ford Ranger's number 5. And I think Ford Ranger is actually perceived as higher quality than the Japanese ones, but it's more expensive.
Oh, interesting.
Huge Ford on the front. They have this monster Ford on the grill. The letters FORD on the grill are huge.
It still boggles my mind, but just because even what I'm seeing here in Malaysia, but I had experience going to the BYD store and seeing it definitely when you, at least in my experience, I checked out the BYD Seal and then pretty much the whole lineup, and if you're in an ICE car and you're stepping into the next one, I feel like the BYD Seal is perfect because it's got all the buttons, it's still decent quality, but with a Model Y, Model 3, it's just 15 steps ahead as far as, because it's so simplistic. And so I can see how just here in the Southeast Asia area, especially depending on your driving, how BYD is just going to accelerate because of the cost, because of the driving, and kind of like really just the whole experience.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is, so BYD has many locations in Thailand. They are really trying to sell cars. Like multiple locations in Bangkok, locations all over Thailand. Tesla has one main location. They have a couple of like showrooms where you can see a couple of Model 3s or Model Ys or whatever, but they're not really sales locations. Okay. There's one main sales and service location in Bangkok, and it's a huge country. And I've noticed this, I think the same thing is true in Malaysia, that it's one place in Kuala Lumpur. Most Japanese cities, and Japan is a wealthy country, most Japanese cities will have one Tesla location. Yeah. Tokyo probably has 2 or 3, and maybe Osaka has 2, but like Nagoya had, I think, 1. And I was in Nagoya. Nagoya's like Chicago. It's like the size of Chicago. So I think this is like an opinion about Tesla.
Yeah.
I think Tesla made the decision a few years ago. We know we're going robo-taxi. Don't spend too much CapEx building out car sales.
Interesting. Good theory.
If you really wanted to sell a volume of Teslas in Thailand, you would open a Tesla store in Chiang Mai, which is the second largest city.
Yeah.
You would probably open one in Phuket, which has a lot of foreigners living there that have money. And it's also not far from Krabi, which is another place. So that, like, if you buy a Tesla in Phuket, it's like a 14-hour drive to the Bangkok service center. Like, I don't know how they. I would have questions.
It's not a great
about
experience.
It's potentially. I believe that if it's a warranty repair, they will put your car in a flatbed and drive it to Bangkok. That's probably going to take a while. Yeah. It's a little bit of a concern. And I think they've just sort of made the decision, we're not pushing car sales that hard because we know we're transitioning to a robo-taxi world in a few years. And this is like a big thing for me, and this has gotten stronger for me since I got here. The value of a robo-taxi in the United States, in Western Europe, maybe in Japan and Australia and a few other countries, wealthy countries, the value of a robo-taxi is much, much higher in those countries than it is in Thailand.
Yeah.
I will routinely take a taxi ride in Thailand. It'll be less than $5.
Yeah.
A longer taxi ride will be $10.
It's just because of the cost, essentially, for Cybercab.
Well, in America, human drivers are expensive.
Yeah.
In Thailand, human drivers are cheap.
Yep.
And a large volume, I don't know about Malaysia as much, in Thailand and Vietnam, a large volume of the equivalent of Uber is hopping. There's a guy sitting on a scooter next to the train station wearing an orange vest and a helmet, and you hop on the back without a helmet. Sorry, in Vietnam he doesn't wear a helmet. In Thailand the driver wears a helmet. The passenger does not wear a helmet, hops on the back of a scooter or a motorcycle, pays the guy less than $1 for a ride.
Yep.
And that guy can cut through traffic. He can weave through, lane split or whatever and get through. A Cybercab can't lane split. And so I think there's a real problem with the value of robo-taxi in country. I think if I'm Tesla, I'm going to push robo-taxi in wealthy countries because I can sell rides for $1 a mile.
Yeah.
You can't sell rides for $1 a mile in Thailand.
Yeah.
Maybe you can sell rides for 30 cents a mile in Thailand. And Cybercab might not make money at 30 cents a mile.
Yeah.
And now you take that and you say, okay, what about Optimus?
Yeah.
The effective minimum wage in America is somewhere around $20 an hour. I should say the cost to the employer of the employee is probably on average $20 an hour or more.
Yeah.
The minimum wage in Thailand is $10 a day. And that might be a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
A 10-hour day, maybe.
Yeah,
So human labor is cheap. So it doesn't make sense. If I'm
it's good perspective.
If I'm Tesla, I'm going to focus on wealthy markets because I'm going to generate more revenue and more profits. And we'll get to those other places eventually. And I think that number one, if you're thinking about the future of Tesla and these technologies, I think they're going to take off more in wealthy countries. I think China has made the commitment. We don't care if we're wealthy or not.
Yeah.
We're going to do this anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it's a smart decision for that country because countries that don't adopt robotaxi and Optimus, the productivity gains from having Robotaxi and Optimus for an economy will be dramatic.
Yeah.
America is going to be much more productive because of Robotaxi and Optimus. Any country that adopts Robotaxi and Optimus will see like huge leaps in productivity. And countries that don't will get left behind. And I wonder, like, I think it was Mark Andreessen said that, like, was it Andreessen? I think he said that, like, most robot uses are illegal in Europe. Like, almost everything you want to do with technology is actually illegal in Europe.
Wow.
Right? And like a lot of, and even in America, a lot of things that you might want to do, like it's illegal to have a robot do that, or there's going to be some challenges with getting these things going. And China said, we want it.
Yeah.
Whatever the new technology is, we want it. And China will dramatically expand their productivity. And America will, with some exceptions, some states will hold back. But by and large, most American states will adopt all this technology, and American productivity will grow. And a place like Thailand or Malaysia, there's a real bad risk they're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And, you know, that doesn't mean their lives are going to be awful.
Yep.
But we're going to leap much farther ahead.
Yeah. Since you've been here, what has been the perception that you've seen of Tesla in general? I mean, again, I think you kind of talked a little bit about how it is seen. People view it as a better quality brand and all this other stuff. But what has been kind of what you've witnessed of the Tesla brand here? And even a lot of the stuff that Elon's doing. I mean, I think at least what I've heard is from a lot of the Asian people that I've talked to here, you know, they actually are clueless really about what Elon's doing with Trump, and they don't really care.
No, they don't care.
But yeah, so what is the perception?
All the Chinese consumers are really pissed off about Elon's Nazi salute. Like,
yeah.
So my window. So I have my Japan window and I have my Thailand window.
Yeah.
So my sense in Japan is they are really the customers in Japan. There's a variety of reasons for this, but I think Japanese people are really committed to their domestic manufacturers. They're committed to Toyota number one, and you know, maybe Honda, maybe Nissan, whatever. They haven't bought into the electric vehicle story. There is a dedicated Tesla fan base in Japan, but it's small. Mm-hmm. And also Japan, half the market is this type of vehicle called a K car, K-E-I. They're these little tiny cars that you'll see people talking about. Oh, that's cute that Japan has these little cars. That's half the Japanese market.
Wow.
And they're very inexpensive.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they're city cars again. They're actually smaller than BYDs. They're these tiny little cars. The standard is 660 cc's and then certain length, height, width.
Yeah, so very small.
Very small, very efficient, very inexpensive. So it's really hard. And then there's this little quirk. Japanese parking spots tend to be narrow. And Teslas tend to be wide.
Yeah.
And for a variety of reasons, and like Tesla doesn't make, just Japan drives on the left-hand side of the road. Tesla doesn't make Model S and X for that, right? So they sell some cars in Japan, but they don't sell that many. And it's not whether it has a perception of good quality or bad quality. It's just like Japanese people aren't interested. And I think in Japan, maybe even more so than Thailand, the Japanese customer is connected to their dealer. They form a relationship with their dealer.
Yeah.
And so you don't just see Toyota dealerships. I saw Corolla dealerships.
Really?
I literally saw Corolla dealerships. Yes. They have dealerships everywhere, and you want your dealership close to your customer. And so Toyota has a massive investment over a long period of time in having dealerships everywhere.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe it's the dealers that have the investment, but if Tesla really wanted to sell a high volume of cars in Japan, they would have to put a lot more locations. And the sales staff have to build a relationship with the customer. And to be fair, the Japanese dealerships deliver. Like American car dealerships have a poor reputation for service. And people feel like the dealer always screws them over. Japanese people respect their car dealer, and their car dealer treats them well.
Yeah.
And that's Japan.
Yeah.
So Thailand, I don't have as good a feel for it because my window is basically my wife and a couple of friends.
Yeah.
And the friends they're like Tesla fans, so that's not like a fair perspective.
Yeah.
But like things like Elon, my wife will say, I saw this in the news that Elon did this. Why did he do that? So she's interested, but she's probably more interested because she's with me.
Yeah.
And like the average Thai person sees that, and then like it's not really relevant to their lives.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, there's that nice story, and they move on. It doesn't stick with them.
Yeah.
And the Nazi salute thing's bogus, but like Thai people are like, they don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? So, say, you know, like, I don't think there's any negative brand impact from Elon being involved with Trump. I'm sure there's a few people who feel that way. They probably weren't going to buy an EV anyway.
Yeah.
And there is the FUD. I don't think we talked about this yet. I have a friend who's buying a Dolphin, who wants to buy a Dolphin. I think we talked about it before we were doing the before the camera was on. One of my wife's best friends wants to buy a BYD Dolphin, and his mother and aunt are going to help with the down payment, a substantial amount of money, but they won't do it if it's an EV because of fire risk and flood risk.
Yeah.
And I sent him a couple of videos, like, here's, like, not just to Tesla, here's a BYD driving in, you know, a foot of water.
Yep.
Right? Like, a gas car couldn't do what this car is doing.
Yeah.
Right? There's not as many videos of BYDs doing it, but they can do it, right? And I sent him a video of the nail test, where they drive a nail through the BYD Blade battery, and they show a nickel manganese cobalt battery light up, and the Blade battery doesn't light up. They're not the same. There's very little fire risk with a Tesla, with a nickel battery in a Tesla. But the lithium iron phosphate batteries are even safer against fire, but they're caught up in that FUD.
Yeah.
They get bombarded with the FUD also.
Yeah.
And it's harder to counteract it. So, but I think in general the perception of Tesla is it's cool. Hey, look, the new Model 3 looks cool.
Yeah.
Right? The new Model Y looks cool. They look cool.
Yeah.
And they stand out compared to ordinary Thai cars.
Yeah.
The ordinary, you know, the Toyota Corolla is probably one of the number one non-pickup truck vehicles in Thailand. My wife's car is a Honda City, which is smaller than a Civic.
Yep.
There's not, you know, and then you have like the high-end European cars, which are just very low volume.
Yeah.
So I think they stand out as like they look better than other cars. I will say, by the way, Deepal, Deepal, those cars look pretty cool. I'm seeing more and more of them.
Yeah.
My gut is they're not as good as Teslas from like a efficiency standpoint and a charge rate and all that other stuff. I think their interior volume isn't as good. They're not using the space as well to create interior volume.
Yep.
They look kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do look kind of cool. So but my sense of Thai people is they respect, most Thai people can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is, the American GDP per capita is something like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. I don't know the number.
Yeah.
Thailand, it's $7,000.
Yeah.
The average, and my wife's family's not rich. I have a couple of Thai friends who are rich.
Yeah.
Right? He still don't have, one of my friends, he still doesn't have an EV.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he makes like $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
He can't afford to buy, you know.
Yeah. It's not cheap for that.
It's a challenge for them.
Yeah.
So that, you know, and the European imports, it's like a 200% tariff.
Yeah.
Like I had an early Cybertruck order, and when they told me I could get it, it's like, well, what do I do? And I had an importer who would bring it in for me.
Yep.
But all right, $100,000 plus a 200% tariff. Am I going to pay $300,000 for a Cybertruck?
Yeah.
And I probably would. Maybe I could have sold it for $350 or $400, made a profit.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
you see a very small volume of BMWs and Mercedes, and I see a few, right? I honestly think Teslas look cooler. I think most people think Teslas look cooler than those.
So we know that Tesla is going to come out. You were kind of actually hinting at it a little bit. So we know that, you know, Tesla said that they're going to release more vehicles later this year. My question to you is, do you think that they're going to release an even smaller vehicle than the Cybercab?
Smaller than Cybercab. I don't know the answer. Here's what threw me for a loop yesterday. I was convinced, for years, I was convinced Tesla will not sell cars in India. Because India is poorer than Thailand.
Yeah.
India is significantly, I think India's GDP per capita is like $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
And although I know there's 1.4 or 1.5, 1.6 billion people, the number of people who can afford to buy a $40,000 car is extremely small. The size of that market is extremely small. It's probably bigger in Thailand, even though Thailand has like 70 million people. Because it's just like they just don't have money.
Yeah.
You just do the bell curve and you get to that part of the bell curve and you're like, there's just not that many people there. So, what's a Model Y?
Yeah.
If you go minimal on a Model Y, I think you're still at least $40,000.
Yeah. And that's if you don't have all the tariffs.
Right. So Thailand does not have tariffs on Chinese-made vehicles.
Okay.
I don't understand the reason for Chinese EVs don't pay tariffs. So you can buy a Tesla or a Shanghai.
Cost.
So they only sell Shanghai Teslas in Thailand.
Yeah.
So I don't see how you make it work in India. And the only thing I can think of at this point is that lower cost vehicle's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a theory about it. And the theory is it doesn't fit because they said it's going to be made on existing lines. And that's not the same as Cybercab.
Yeah.
Right? Cybercab's on different lines. But what if they're making a vehicle? You know how the seats on the Cybercab are like very straightforward? They're like kind of bare bones?
Yeah.
I haven't sat in it. Did you sit in it?
Yes. It's very utilitarian. There's literally no room for cracks.
I think that's the word that Drew Baglino used at a earnings call. He said very utilitarian. So,
because it's meant for like a robot to be able to kind of go in and just suck out all the
what
junk.
if you made a vehicle with 2 rows of that? How much would you save on cost? So if you made a vehicle that's I don't want to say it's on the same line as Cybercab, but if you made a vehicle that's the same rough dimensions as Cybercab, but with 2 rows, and those seats, which are, I think, very low cost to manufacture, if you figured out a way to make that.
Because when we talked with the Cybercab engineers back in December, they told us that they had essentially deleted 50% of the parts from the 3 to the Cybercab.
Right, I heard that video.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where if you end up, even if you added in some other things, there's a lot that they could do.
Well, and so here's a question for you. I'll make it a statement and ask you what you think. I think Elon's sandbagging the price of Cybercab. He's talking about $30,000. It's like, no. Cybercab's going to cost less than $25,000. If it's half the... Do you remember what Baglino said? Half the footprint, double the volume, half the cost.
Yeah.
Well, if Model 3 sells for under $40,000 and you go half the cost, shouldn't Cybercab sell for under $20,000? Now, maybe that's too much.
Yeah.
But I think Cybercab might be under 25 grand.
I could see that, especially once they start to ramp it.
Yeah.
Especially with what they've done. And like I said, I think Elon actually, I think he tweeted at Omar even last night, just saying like the Cybercab production line is just insane and we already know that they're doing it. Yeah. I'm thinking though, like aside from the Cybercab though, I do think that whether it's on the line or I do think that there is going to be, my thought is that there's going to be something else that has a steering wheel, because that's the problem with the Cybercab, right? Is that it doesn't have a steering wheel. So,
well, you're not going to deliver robotaxi in Thailand for at least 2 years and probably longer, and it might not be competitive. And you're not going to deliver
because they haven't even released FSD.
Right. You're not going to. There's some. I think there's some autopilot on highways or something, but not
it's like
much.
Enhanced, yeah. At least that's what they have in Malaysia and Singapore.
Yes. And you're not going to have. I don't think, because human drivers are cheap, I don't think robotaxi is going to be competitive in India. So I think you need a vehicle. And I don't remember if it was Rohan. There was somebody from Tesla I was talking to at one of the events who said that they need to have a vehicle with a steering wheel for India.
Oh, yeah.
And even if they get robotaxi working, whoever told me didn't say it for this reason, but I see it now. Like, human drivers are so cheap, you're not going to compete with them.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say that.
Well, even getting FSD working in India, that's a whole nother.
And the regulatory hurdles.
Yes. Yeah.
And people don't know this. There's something called the taxi mafia. And I thought it was just India, but apparently it's also in Phuket, Thailand. The people who run taxis, if you try to run some new thing in there, like,
well,
they'll
Uber's
destroy.
Seen it.
That's what happened to Uber when I was in Goa, India, and it was like you could get an Uber from the airport to where you were going, but it was really like Uber was paying the taxi mafia. But you couldn't get an
Turkey
Uber
was
back.
the same way.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of resistance to deploying robo-taxis in a lot of
Yeah.
places. And so you need a vehicle with a steering wheel for those places.
Yeah.
But I will say this, go back to that point. This is a huge mistake that India is making. It's a huge mistake that any country that allows a taxi mafia to do this is you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
The world, that I believe in the acceleration, we're accelerating.
Yeah.
I can't believe Grok 3. I'm assuming you use Grok 3.
Yes. Yeah.
I was already in love with ChatGPT. I was already in love with Grok 2, Claude. I use a lot of them, Perplexity. Grok 3 is blowing me away. It's not perfect. I still see some weaknesses. I don't think its image generation is exactly what I wanted. But still, by and large, the conversations are like off the charts, the deep research, the thinking. We're just getting started.
Yeah. It's just the beginning.
And so there's so many ways that technology is going to accelerate everything. And any country that doesn't say, like, if you're running a country right now, you should be saying, we need to get on this.
Yeah.
We need to make this happen now. We need to move all the roadblocks out of the way.
Yeah.
Because if we let domestic resistance stop this from happening, we're all going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And I think I see it. You know, this thing, you feel like you see the future?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, just like a side note.
Yeah.
Optimus.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, even Elon, and I don't always disagree with Elon, but I will occasionally disagree with Elon. There's this belief that AI will destroy jobs and people won't have work to do. And maybe that's true 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm underestimating, maybe it's 20 years from now. But I think people are underestimating the ways that AI can create new jobs or build jobs. Really simple example. I wanted a Tesla solar roof. And it ended up not happening. That's a long story. But if you look into the challenge of putting solar on a roof, whether it's solar roof tiles or solar panels, one of the largest costs is labor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's permitting and there's labor. And let's say you got 10 guys on the roof. What if Optimus means you only need 5 guys on the roof? 5 guys you have 5 humans working on the project and 5 robots, right? And you lower the price of the roofing job from $50,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
What happens to demand? Demand 5x.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing that people don't know about solar is it's just barely expensive enough that when interest rates are high, it doesn't make sense to borrow money to do it for the money that you're saving on electricity.
Yeah.
But if you drop the price 40%, then all of a sudden it makes sense for a heck of a lot of people to do solar. So what happens is you go from 10 guys on one roof, like the roofing company is doing one roof at a time, and it's got 10 guys on the job.
Yeah.
Now it's doing 5 roofs at a time, and it's got 5 guys on each roof. You got 25 roofing guys.
Yeah.
And they're safer because the robot's doing the dangerous stuff.
Yeah. A lot of opportunities.
And the robot will work longer hours. And I think that's just an example. People, like when cash machines came out, people said they would destroy bank teller jobs, and bank teller jobs doubled.
Yeah.
Because it made banking so much more efficient. They opened more branches, and they gave the bank tellers higher value work.
It's good for.
So I think that there's an acceleration that's coming that might actually create jobs, create the abundance that Elon talks about, but not creating the abundance that drives people out of work, but gives us the opportunity to be more productive.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Well, thank you, Warren, so much for your time. I'm really excited hearing some of your conversations that you'll be even having at the Tesla Takeover Asia this weekend. Thanks for dropping all of the knowledge, especially that you've gained being here in Asia, boots on the ground. So we're going to put a link in for his channel. He's posting videos regularly. Follow him on X. You'll get a lot of great knowledge.
Much more active on X.
Yeah.
My YouTube is tailing off. I'm still doing it, but much more active on X.
Yeah. So thank you again for your time. And thank you again for watching. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.